lousy housekeeper. When I crawled around under her bed, my dress picked up dust pom-poms, and I'd inspect the dried crud on my spoon for a moment before daring to plunge it through the wrinkled skin of my poached pear. "What's the matter with you? You're not eating?" she'd ask, and her puzzlement would explode into a huge guffaw. "That itty-bitty pear isn't going to plug up your fanny hole." Then there was my grandmother, who lived in a crummy prefab between the railway and the lumber yard, in the neighborhood called La Gaîté. Whenever we arrived, she would be gathering greens for the rabbits or doing some mending or washing, which irritated my mother. "Why can't you take it easy at your age?" Reproaches like that exasperated my grandmother, who only a few years earlier had been hauling herself up to the railroad tracks by gripping clumps of grass, so that she could sell apples and cider to the American soldiers after the Normandy invasion. She'd grumble a bit, then bring in the pot of boiling hot coffee threaded with white foam, and pour a drop of eau de vie on the sugar stuck to the bottom of the cups. Everyone would swirl the brandy gently around. They'd talk, nattering on about the neighbors, a landlord who wouldn't make repairs, and I'd be a touch bored, as there was nothing to explore in that little house without a proper yard, and almost nothing to eat. My grandmother would slurp greedily at the dregs in her cup. Her high cheekbones were as shiny as the yellow boxwood eggs she used to darn socks. Sometimes, when she thought she was alone out in her scrap of a garden, she peed standing up, spreading her legs beneath her long black skirt. And yet she had come in first in the canton on the exam for the primary school certificate, so she could have been a teacher. But my great-grandmother had said, "Not on your life. She's my eldest girl, and I need her at home to raise the other 5. A story told 100 times why her life hadn't come up roses. Once she'd been like me, running around, going to school, with no idea what was coming, and then disaster struck. With 5 youngsters to hold her back, she was finished. What I didn't understand was why she later had 6 of her own, without any dependence allowances either. You didn't need a map to figure out early on that kids, chicks, everyone I knew used to call them, put you truly in the hole, just buried you alive. And at the same time it seemed irresponsible, careless, the sort of thing you'd expect from poor people who had no common sense. Those large families I saw all around me meant swarms of runny-nosed brats, women pushing baby carriages and staggering along with bags of groceries, and constant griping at the end of every month. Granny had fallen into the trap, but you couldn't blame her. Back then, it was normal to have 6, 10 children. We've come a long way since. My aunts and uncles were so fed up with big families that my cousins are all only children. I'm an only child, too, and an afterthought as well. That's what they call children born late in life, when a couple who hadn't wanted any, or any more, changed their minds. I was their one and only, period. I was convinced I was really lucky. The sole exception was Aunt Solange. Poor Solange, with that brood of hers, my mother always said. She lived in La Gaîté, too, and we often went there on Sundays. The neighborhood was like a vast playground where you could do anything you wanted. In the summer, I joined my 7 cousins and their friends, shrieking on the seesaws we made from planks stacked next to the lumber yard. In the winter, we played tag in the one big bedroom, crammed with beds. I adored all this warmth and uproar, almost enough to want to live there. But my Aunt Solange frightened me. She was old before her time, always puttering in her kitchen, her mouth twitching uncontrollably. Once she spent months laid up in bed when her uterus decided to prolapse on her. Then there were the times when she would get this vacant look in her eyes. She'd open a window, close it, move the chairs around, and bang, she'd start screaming that she was going to take the children and leave, that she had always been unhappy, while my uncle just sat calmly at the table, glass in hand, not saying a word, or else sneering, "You wouldn't have any idea where to go, you idiot." She'd rush weeping out into the courtyard, threatening to throw herself into the cistern, but her children or the neighbors would grab her first. As for us, we'd head tactfully for the door as soon as the shouting started. Looking back, I would see the youngest girl crying open-mouthed, her teary face pressed against the window pane. I don't know if my other